telling you what the plan was, but I thought I would be inspired if I went and ended up getting malaria. So I was in the hospital for like 3 days, and that was a really rough time. And then I ended up tearing my patella tendon and needing knee surgery. Can you believe that? In the same year. And the plan to figure out this whole entrepreneurship thing did not happen either. So we ended up having to sell our house, the house that we built from the ground up. And it was a really rough time. That whole year was one of the best years of my life and the worst years of my life. Hi, it's Dre Griggs with Obsidian Wisdom. Today we answer the question, how can I make sure I saved enough money for my retirement lifestyle? As we get ready for retirement, many of us are trying to figure out, will I be able to keep my house? Will I be able to have my car? Can I pay my bills, keep the lights on? On the one hand, we're worried about our needs, as we should be. We want to make sure that we have food and shelter, our healthcare bills are covered and things like that. But on the other hand, we're not just waiting to die. When we retire, we expect to be able to have some fun. We want to be able to travel, try new things, visit family, do all these amazing things that we've always known we would love to do if we had control of our time. So retirement is going to be one of the best times of your life as long as we're prepared accordingly. So a lot of people ask, Dre, how do I know that I have enough money saved for my retirement? Before we really get into the nuts and bolts as far as figuring out whether you have enough money, I find a good sanity check is called the 1% rule. And all the 1% rule is it basically says that for every $1,000 I want to generate a month, I should have about $250,000 set aside for my retirement. And then you could use that calculation to just see how you're doing. Just as a quick and dirty, for every $240,000 that you have set aside, you know that should be able to generate you about $1,000 a month in retirement. The next thing most of us need to do is we got to take a look at our Social Security. We got to see what that estimated monthly income is. Now, you've seen there's different numbers out there that says Social Security is going to run out of money in like 2041, so around there. And that number does adjust sometimes because the government makes small changes to the overall Social Security plan. And when I say Social Security is going to run out of money, I'm not saying that you literally wouldn't get anything. The way that most estimates are is that Social Security currently, the way it's designed, generates enough money to pay about 77% of what the promised benefits are. So all that means is you would basically have a 30% cut, which would be pretty significant. So when you talk about the wealthy retirement system, it has three phases. The first is we have the future-proof wealth formula. It's a fancy way of saying how much income do I have coming in and how comfortable am I that this income will last my entire retirement, right? That's really what most of us are trying to figure out. If there's a recession, do I still have this money coming in? If Social Security goes away, do I still have this money coming in? These are all questions that many of us have when we're trying to make sure we don't run out of money. And so part of that is the future-proof wealth formula. The second aspect that all of us have to consider when we retire is called the healthcare prosperity blueprint. And it's a very fancy way of saying that if the number one risk that you have is running out of money in retirement, the number two risk you have is about your healthcare and ensuring that you can have high quality healthcare and that healthcare expense does not ruin your retirement, where you're sacrificing your trips and your vacations because of the way your healthcare plan is designed, because they can be very expensive. For many people, the estimate is somewhere around $5,000 to $8,000 every single year. And about 80% of that is just your premiums from your Medicare and your healthcare and different things that you have taken into retirement. And the third and often most overlooked aspect of the wealthy retirement system is designing your dream life. That is what I'm going to do with my time. How do I achieve happiness and fulfillment and joy, satisfaction? How do I have all these amazing feelings in retirement so I don't have any regret or any worry? And that's really big for most of us, which is why it's so important that you design that dream life. Whatever that lifestyle looks like, go ahead and list all the things that you would love to do in retirement. And then as you check off certain things, don't let your list go from 50 to 49 and then 49 and keep going down until you have like 20 things left. I want you to keep adding things onto that list. Always keep it, whatever that number is at. If you have at least 30 goals set aside, fantastic. If you work your way up to 50, like I try to push you guys to, even better. And then maintain that 50. Every time you take something off the list, go ahead and add something new at the end of the list. And that way it allows us to keep staying up to date as we change and our philosophy change and our beliefs change, that your goals match those new beliefs. Think of it like having a bookshelf in your house. The numbers show that the majority of people don't really look at the bookshelf. They have books, they read them once, maybe twice, and then they place on the bookshelf and they never look at it again. And if you ever go back and look at your bookshelf, you'll realize that it's capturing a lot of important information along the way, different things you tried and believed and explored. And it's almost telling a mini story about you where it allows you to see where you've come and where you're going. And I find that to be a fantastic thing. So when it comes to designing your retirement lifestyle, once you know what you want to accomplish, let's go ahead and put a dollar amount on it. Once we put a dollar amount on it, we can then calculate how much that would be every single year, divide that up. So how much money do I need to have every single month? And then we can start figuring out a plan to get that amount. Based on the income that you need, we will then subtract how much Social Security you have coming in. And then we have to figure out of the 7 streams of income that the IRS says they recognize, how can I have 3 of them in my retirement? I try to build your wealthy retirement system understanding that 65% of self-made millionaires have at least 3 streams of income. So what 3 streams of income can I give you that's aligned with your goals, that allows you to have that wealthy retirement and ensures that you're protected from all of these future concerns that many of us are going to have, whether that's inflation or recessions or Social Security running out, or whether we're worried about market volatility or healthcare expenses. All of these things we can prepare accordingly, and then we can put a plan together to make sure. Now, if you're someone who says, all right, Dre, well, I put those numbers together and there is no way I'm going to have that amount of money set aside for retirement, then we have to look at some of the other levers. And there's a couple ways we could do this. One is we can say, all right, how about I lower some of my expenses? Maybe I can pay off my mortgage or my cars. Maybe I could downsize. Maybe I can move to a state with a lower cost of living where the amount of my pension or my retirement funds, now it goes a lot further. I have several people that I know from New York that moved to Florida. Sure, we have great weather, obviously. Naturally, our tax structure is a lot better, fantastic, but our cost of living is significantly better. So if you have a run-of-the-mill pension in New York and maybe that's $100,000, well, if you move to Florida, that's a pretty nice lifestyle for you based on the cost of living that we have. And you could do that with a variety of different states. I have another video and I'll link to it where I go through the top 10 cities to retire in the United States. And it takes everything from cost of living to the activities, to the lifestyle, to the healthcare costs, takes all of that into consideration, and that it can help you make a decision on what makes the most sense for you. If you're not someone who feels moving and lowering your cost is in the cards, then you can consider working an additional year or 3. Once you're able to say, all right, I'll work 1 more year, 2 more years, 3 more years, and I'm going to put 70% of my check into my retirement fund, that will have a huge impact on your ability to extend how long your money will last. And there's a variety of reasons. One is you're making more money. 2 is you're not taking anything out of your retirement fund. And as a result, that allows you to leave your money in the market so that it can continue growing. And it's almost the gift that keeps on giving, because now you still have your employer health care. Now you don't have to worry about taking Social Security at that particular time. You can wait a little bit longer if you want. And as you know, you get about an 8% increase in what your Social Security payout is just for every additional year that you work up until 70. Now, when you take into consideration that you have more money in your retirement account, you have more money coming in Social Security, you probably have less expenses because you're able to pay some of your expenses off as well. And now you don't have to touch your money. So that money is going to last even longer than the money that was already in there. When you really look at all of that, that is why when someone says, I'll work 1 additional year, 12 additional months, sometimes that can add hundreds of thousands of dollars to the bottom line of your retirement plan just because of that compounding benefit. Now, some of you are going to say, well, look, Dre, I hate my job. If I work 1 more day, I will literally keel over. Then I will say we can't do that, because there's an African proverb that says wealth which enslaves the owner isn't wealth. And I'm someone who believes and adheres to that philosophy. If the money is at such a high cost of your health, your lifestyle, your family, or your goals or your core values, things like that, then I really do think, okay, there's a time of sacrifice. But I don't know if that is the time when we're just about to retire. I don't know if that's the right time. And that cost of that sacrifice is pretty high. And so maybe it may make more sense for us to go ahead and retire, but maybe we can manage some of those costs with part-time work where we get healthcare benefits. And depending on how much you receive for your part-time work, then it does decrease the amount of money that you have to take out of your retirement fund. And while it may not be as large of a scale as the benefit of maintaining your highest salary, as most of us make the most money we make in our career in our late 50s just before we retire, it doesn't change the fact that we still have a lot of benefits. You're still not taking out as much money. You still could consider whether you need to dip into your Social Security at that particular point in time, and it may still give you a lot of those options available. Now, we don't always have to go back to work for healthcare. There's also some pretty cool organizations that offer healthcare through some sort of a group plan where everyone inside the organization, they have this group policy, and you're able to get the healthcare through the group. I think I've seen a bikers club that has one. I've seen some very interesting groups that do give you access to healthcare benefits through the organization. And so it may make sense for you to explore those options too. The last thing that we want to consider is our overall portfolio design. And I say that cautiously because I'm not saying that we should be going for gold, that all of our money should be very aggressively invested, where in our mind we're saying, okay, if I can get a 20% return, then I can go ahead and retire. So the numbers work out, Dre, let's do that. And I would say, yeah, best case scenario, everything you're saying is true. But as a financial planner, we can't deal in best case scenario. And I've lived that personally, right? I remember when I left my corporate job and the plan was make enough money to pay my bills before I run out of the money in my retirement account. That was the plan. And I said, okay, I can save money on my healthcare bill because I don't generally go to the doctor. I'm a very healthy person. And so I said, okay, I saved that amount. And then I said, okay, well, maybe I can homeschool the kids. I want to hang out with them anyways, so I can save money on the daycare bill. So then that would count as well. Well, that plan didn't really work out. It didn't work out at all. I ended up going to Nigeria, which I know is crazy, right? Telling you what the plan was, but I thought I would be inspired if I went, and ended up getting malaria. So I was in the hospital for like 3 days, and that was a really rough time. And then I ended up tearing my patella tendon and needing knee surgery. Can you believe that? In the same year. And the plan to figure out this whole entrepreneurship thing did not happen either. So we ended up having to sell our house, the house that we built from the ground up. And it was a really rough time. That whole year was one of the best years of my life and the worst years of my life. It was one of the best years of my life because I had all of my time and I was able to spend it with my wife and my kids, working the business, and I felt very fulfilled in the work I was doing. But then it was also the worst time because the plan I had was everything will be perfect until I figure this out. And strangely enough, none of that happened. So I know personally what it's like to retire without having a complete plan, without knowing how all of the bills are going to be paid and what we're going to do in a few months or a few years from now. And I can tell you that that's not where you want to be at. You don't want to be between a rock and a hard place where you say, okay, I have to make a ton of money to pay these bills. So as a fiduciary, what I'll do is I will put a portfolio together and I'll say, hey, this will get you a 20% return on average, right? And whenever I show you that, I always make sure that you know that, hey, this is based on past performance. And past performance doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen in the future. But one thing that I like to do, and a lot of advisors and financial planners don't do, is I'm going to give you the range of the volatility and the percentage likelihood of that. So I will say, all right, this is designed to get you a 20% return. And that's what's going to happen the majority of the time. So I will say maybe 60% of the time you're going to get that return, but 25% of the time we're actually going to lose money. And then out of that 25% that will lose money, 5% of the time we could lose up to 40%. And that basically, whenever I tell you that a portfolio performs on average a certain way, that's exactly what I mean. That's the average. And what that means is 15% of the time you're going to surpass that 20% return and you're going to get a 30, 40% return. And it does mean that 75% of the time this portfolio is going to make you money. It may not always make you that 20%, but it's going to make you money. But it also means that 25% of the time, this portfolio is going to lose money. And this portfolio could lose anywhere from 5 to 25%. Are you comfortable with that? Because that sometimes is the cost of building a portfolio that gets you a higher return. When you look at these hedge funds, for example, you will see that sometimes they can get you a 15 to 30% return, but you'll see within the next 5 years that half those hedge funds don't exist anymore. They lost the money along the way and they made an investment that didn't quite work out because the market is very volatile. And that's part of the reason why you're not supposed to chase stock market returns. If you're always investing in last year's best stock, if you look at the average performance, that technically means that it's more likely that that stock will have a bad performance the next year, right? Because all of them have ranges of volatility. All of them have a certain range of expectation. And if that stock normally performs on average at 5, 10, 15%, and last year had a 30% return, well, that may mean that this following year, it's going to have a 5%, 10% loss. And that's often what ends up happening. And many people chase stock market returns, which unfortunately means that you're buying high. You're literally buying the stock at its absolute highest when the buzz is out of this world and everybody's in love with that stock. And then it starts going back down to the average. And you're sitting there like, well, I bought it at 30% and now it's dropped down to 5%. And you're now feeling like, all right, I've lost a decent amount of money. I need to sell it. Well, inherently, that means that you bought it high and then you sold it low, which you and I both know that doesn't work, right? And so many times when people are automatically saying, I'll just make that difference up in the stock market, if you think about the way the numbers work and the averages work, then that's probably not what's going to happen. But if it is possible for you, you have to have a very specific risk tolerance. Because the average person, when they see the stock going down, they're going to be calling me up, Dre, we need to sell this. And so sometimes I have to protect you from yourself because once you put the plan together, Right. It's my job to help you achieve the goals of your plan, right? We design the plan based on your goals. You're the driver, but I'm always going to be your guide. I'm going to be your passenger. I'm going to be the one that's like, hey, I don't know if this is going to work. And I'll give you as much information as I can to help you make an informed decision. And then we can make what makes the most sense for you. So I'm trying to appease you today, but then I'm also trying to appease your future self. I want you to be excited about your decision in 10, 15 years. There's a certain legacy and appreciation for all of the people that we've helped along the years, to where my kids are proud and are excited to work at such a company, own such a company, to grow such a company. And so normally when we're talking about optimizing your returns, we're really talking about making sure that you're not too conservative to where now you're not even keeping up with inflation. The second thing we're normally looking for is whatever that portfolio that we design, we need to be checking in on our allocations and making sure that that portfolio still matches that. Because what tends to happen is a portion of your portfolio is performing really well, and now it's making up a higher percentage of your overall portfolio design. And then the portfolio that isn't performing very well, that's making a lower percentage of your overall portfolio design. So you have to go in periodically and reallocate it. For a lot of people, they say do it every once, maybe every 2 years. It really depends on you. I'm someone who does believe that you should allow your wins to win. And so you don't want to just sell like every month or every 3 months. You want to give your wins an opportunity to breathe before you reset it back. Another thing worth looking at when you're talking about optimizing your portfolio is, what are my tax consequences? How should I withdraw my money? Should I withdraw it on a pro rata basis, which means I take an even portion out of each of my overall investments? Should I withdraw my money from a tax deferred to a tax free? Because there are so many ways to withdraw your money, and depending on the allocation that you pick, you could add an additional 50, 100, 200, $300,000 onto your overall bottom line, because you're saving money from a tax perspective. And the last thing I'll look at when I'm optimizing my portfolio is, what are the costs associated with my investments? Are they high cost investments that are actively traded? Because I probably don't need that in retirement. Are they passive investments that have lower costs? Because I could build a portfolio based solely off of that. Then you'll see that the overall bottom line is impacted based on what those fees are. And so you do want to be able to make sure that you're giving yourself the best allocation. That's part of the reason that I offer a version of the wealthy retirement system where you just pay a one-time flat fee. I build the whole thing for you, and then you're able to just maintain it yourself. You don't have to pay any fees going forward. But for those that do want ongoing management and peace of mind, we have a version where you can pay a flat monthly fee, like $100 every single month. And depending on what your allocation and portfolio size is, that tends to put a lot of money back in your pocket when you compare it to someone who's charging a percentage of your portfolio, where if you have $1 million and I'm taking 1%, well, that's $10,000. All right, that will do it. If you are someone who is planning or looking to retire in the next 5 years and you want to be happy and not worried about it, I invite you to go to obsidianwisdom.com to learn more. As always, I'm thankful for your time. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy life.